What's up, everybody? Derek Anderson, the DA, and yeah, came across this little article on Gizmodo.com talking about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and it asked this question, as you can see in the headline: Is the Marvel Cinematic Universe trying too hard to play catch up? And I think the question, I'm not sure what they meant by catch up in this situation, but I think the question that they're posing, which is actually a really interesting question that a lot of people have been asking over the past few months. Is it becoming too saturated or oversaturated? It asks this question right here in the little header. Between theaters and Disney Plus, the MCU noise is starting to get overwhelming and it's hurting every facet of the franchise. So yeah, it's an interesting question. I do think there is something to it because let's face it, we're getting a lot of Marvel Cinematic Universe stuff right now, and I'll show you that in just a moment. But yeah, let's go ahead and check out this article and see what it has to say. By the way, folks, if you haven't already done so and you don't mind, go ahead and give this video a like. It would really help it out, and I appreciate it a lot. Appreciate all the new subscribers coming through. Thank you very much for supporting my channel. Let's go ahead and read this article talking about Marvel. So it asks a question right off the bat: does it feel like we're getting too much Marvel? It feels like we're getting too much Marvel, and it kind of does in a lot of ways. But let's read what this writer has to say. So it says, just a few days ago, we got the Disney Plus release of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, with Thor: Love and Thunder finally hitting theaters next week, just a few days after the penultimate episode of Miss Marvel. Come August, we're meant to be getting She-Hulk, later to be followed by Black Panther 2 in November, the mysterious Halloween special, the holiday special for Guardians of the Galaxy, and so on. And this isn't counting Spider-Man No Way Home going back to theaters in September, simply because it feels like it needs even more money. I think the goal is to try to hit $2 billion on Spider-Man No Way Home. At least one piece of Marvel media per month can feel dizzying, especially in the year 2022, where it feels incredibly surreal that it's already the end of June. Yes, it is. Time moves fast. And yeah, so does Marvel. Marvel moves pretty fast too, and they wait for no man. Perhaps, obviously, the reason for this is COVID-19. High off the victory of Avengers Endgame, Marvel Studios proudly announced a new slate of Phase 4 content that would alternate between theatrical releases and then the upcoming Disney Plus streaming service. But once the pandemic hit, many of the things announced back in Comic-Con found their momentum suddenly kneecapped, like most of the entertainment industry. And they basically, what they're saying is they just pushed everything and crammed it into 2021 and 2022. And that's what it feels like. Like everything has literally been sandwiched in instead of going all the way through 2020 itself and then 2021 and 2023. Everything just kind of got sandwiched into 2 years because they didn't want to break their groove. Marvel, the MCU, when it first started out and leading up at least into half of Phase 2, several new movies managed to feel like an event in and of themselves. Even when they were sequels of varying quality, the time between one film and another felt long enough to come up for air, do some stretching, allow yourself to do some light speculation, and to keep focus. You know, that's very true. That is one of the things that Marvel really did well. It paced itself. It wasn't too much too soon. It was like, no, we're going to drop a movie and then we're going to drop like another movie in a couple of months, you know, or in a few months, right? Like they were having like 2 movies a year, maybe 3 movies a year in a really aggressive year. And that's when everybody was kind of like, okay, I like this pace. You know, a couple of Marvel properties, you know, you get something maybe in March, and then you'll get something in May, and then maybe something to way down the line in August or September. And that gives you breathing room. It gives you time to kind of say, oh, I wonder what's going to happen next. And you have those post-credit scenes that you can really chew on, right? And kind of speculate about. And everybody's all over message boards on Facebook and on the internet, and they're just kind of doing their speculation. And that was the beauty of the Marvel Cinematic Universe right off the bat. The franchise is now gradually beginning to feel like an obligation on par with doing your taxes or taking the trash out. And that's not a position any IP should be in. I would agree with that in a certain sense. A lot of IPs would love to be able to have the sachet of a Marvel Cinematic Universe right now, where they could just literally make anything and just push it out, and it gets pretty good reviews by most of the critics, and the audiences seem to like it, and people are flocking into the theaters to check it out. I think a lot of folks would love to have that. So to say that any IP should not want to feel in that position, I don't know. I mean, right now the MCU is doing well, but nevertheless, I do think that they have a point about it being so so much so soon that it's starting to feel a little stale. It's starting to feel like the Marvel Cinematic Universe doesn't really have the same creativity that it does. And I'm going to go ahead and kind of touch on that. Let's take a quick look at all of the stuff that's come out in Phase 4, and you'll see what I mean. So let's take a quick peek. This is what Marvel Phase 4 has come out with so far since it started, right? It basically started right in 2021, January, with WandaVision, right? That was the first show to come out. And then right after that, you got Falcon and the Winter Soldier in March of 2021. You get to Loki in June of 2021. Then you get to Black Widow in July of 2021. Then you get What If in August of 2021. Then you get Shang-Chi in September of 21, followed by the Eternals in November, Hawkeye also in November, Spider-Man No Way Home in December, right? I mean, that's the entire year. It's like, man, they barely missed a month where something wasn't happening on the Marvel Cinematic Universe, all right? And then it kind of gave us a little bit of a break. It kind of waited a few months before they brought out Moon Knight, which dropped in March of 2022. And then, of course, we got Doctor Strange 2 in May of 2022. And then we're on Miss Marvel still right now in June of 2022. That is 12 series or movies in the last 18 months. That's a series every 1.5 months. And guess what's coming up next week? Thor Love and Thunder. So we're getting a lot of Marvel in a short period of time. Before, if you remember Phase 1, over the period of 4 years, we got 6 movies. That was it. 6 movies, right? The 2 Iron Man movies, Thor, Captain America, Hulk, Avengers. 6 movies. That was Phase 1. And it felt fresh. It felt different. That was when comic book movies, I think, were kind of like just finding itself, and they were building this universe, and it felt new and it felt different. It was awesome, right? And now we're getting twice as much material in like 1/3 of the time. It's like, what the hell is going on here? So yeah, let's go ahead and get back to the article. And it goes on to say, and it's starting to show in the MCU itself. By now, you've heard that Miss Marvel has reportedly the lowest viewership of any MCU series thus far. Releasing it on the same day as Obi-Wan surely didn't help, and it would have been nice if the show actually had some time to breathe. That's not the problem with Miss Marvel. It's a kids show. It's not very interesting, at least in terms of the overall MCU. It does present that little bit of a problem, like, okay, it doesn't have an opportunity to kind of live and breathe on its own. It's kind of sandwiched in with a lot of other stuff, so everybody just feels like, hey, I can ignore this. I don't need to really watch this. And let's be honest, like, whatever happens in the Marvel Cinematic Universe is going to get recapped in another film or something down the line. Like, you didn't really need to watch WandaVision to understand what happened in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. They kind of recapped it, and you kind of got the feeling like, okay, that's cool. I didn't necessarily need to watch WandaVision. Yes, I think it really helps to understand the character and what happened with her kids and all of that emotion. But overall, if you just accept, okay, you know, at the beginning of the movie, it just kind of recaps, in a sense, what happened over in that series and where Wanda's head is at, you can just move on and accept that with no problem. And that's probably what I'm going to do with Miss Marvel and the Marvels, because I haven't watched another episode of Miss Marvel, and I don't think I need to. You know, I don't think there's anything in this that is so riveting that I have to tune in. And that's one of the things you're getting with Marvel, where it's like, okay, this doesn't feel like must-see TV like the films do. Like the films, I think everybody's going to keep checking those out. They'll take those seriously. But when you have a series like Moon Knight that really doesn't seem to connect to anything, like what did Moon Knight really connect to in terms of the MCU overall? Not much, you know. So whenever Moon Knight makes his appearance possibly in a movie somewhere, they'll just recap him and move on. And that's like, okay. So a lot of this stuff is just feeling perfunctory. It's just feeling like, hey, we're doing a show because we can, not necessarily because we need to, not necessarily because it definitely fits in the overall framework of the story. We need to tell this story. It's so important. Nah, we can just go ahead and just move on past that. Not like the stuff that you got in Phase 2, where you had Captain America and the Winter Soldier. You know, that was like a very, very crucial film. Guardians of the Galaxy, again, in an entertaining film, but it also felt crucial to the overall story that it was telling in the MCU at that time. So for me, that's the stuff that Phase 4 just doesn't seem to have. And yeah, I don't know where they're going necessarily with it, but a lot of this, again, just feels perfunctory. It's just like, yeah, we're just throwing series out because why not, you know? And that's kind of what they're saying. So what can be done about the MCU at this point? It appears that the only option would be some kind of outright failure that convinces Marvel Studios to slow down, since the franchise just won't let itself take a break. With its constant stream of content, it's easy to wonder if it's afraid of being forgotten in an age where the biggest insult of an IP is to be ignored. Disney has another property that, in Star Wars. And if you remember, when you spaced Star Wars films out, like when Star Wars films were coming out every 3 years, each film felt like an event, right? Every film felt like an event. And that's the thing I feel like Marvel had for a while. But now these films don't feel so eventful. It's like, like even Doctor Strange, as much as I enjoyed the movie, it just didn't feel like an event. It just felt like another page in the book of Marvel. And it's not necessarily like a chapter that you really have to really pay attention to, or a pivotal moment. It just feels like, hey, it's another page in the book. Just keep turning and keep reading, this overall giant book. You know how sometimes when you're reading a book and you just want to kind of skip to the good stuff, that's what this feels like right now. Like, I just want to skip to the good stuff. I'm tired of watching Miss Marvel and Moon Knight and all these other shows. Like, I don't really care. This, like, it doesn't feel important. Like, all right, come on, get on to the next stuff. And that's what happens when you just throw so many shows and you oversaturate the audience with your material. It just gets to feel like everything is just, it's just not really that important. But nevertheless, that was it for me. What do you folks think about this idea? Is the Marvel Cinematic Universe losing its feeling of importance? Like it's crucial, like it's an event that folks are like, oh man, this is like in-game, level stuff. I got to come out to see this. And it's not necessarily like everything has to be in-game. Like Civil War had some importance. It felt important, right? Thor Ragnarok felt important, even to a lesser degree, like Black Panther and, some of the other smaller movies, they felt important to the overall universe. And now it's just kind of like, I can miss it. It doesn't bother me. But anyway, folks, go ahead and give me your opinions on that. Drop down in the comments. Let me know what you think about the Marvel Cinematic Universe Phase 4 right now. All right, folks, thanks for watching. See you next time.